In this episode of the Locked On NBA Big Board podcast, I am going to recap the top rookie performances from opening night of the 2023 Summer League in Sacramento and Salt Lake. No, it's not the big one in Las Vegas, but Summer League started Monday, and I'm going to share my thoughts on the top rookie performances. Stay tuned. Big shout out to each and every person that has made the Locked On NBA Big Board podcast your first listen of the day. I'm your host, Rafael Barlowe, the director of scouting for NBA Big Board and the founder of NBA Draft Junkies. And this episode is brought to you by FanDuel, the official sports book of Locked On. Make every moment more. Visit FanDuel.com/LockedOnNBA, /Locked On today to get started. Right, I hope everybody had a great 4th of July. I had a good 4th of July myself. Spent time with my wife's family and my son and ate good and ate really good, like too good. So I need to chill out today and work out because my goal for this summer is to get in shape. I know it's July and summer is, it's here, but I definitely need to be in better shape. All right, let's talk about Monday's opening night of the Summer League, and for me, the marquee matchup that I was looking forward to seeing the most was Charlotte versus San Antonio. Even though I knew Victor Wembanyama was not playing, I wanted to see Brandon Miller play. I'm a big Brandon Miller fan. I think that Charlotte made the right choice. I know I may be in the minority there. Scoot is like the hands-on favorite, but I like what Brandon Miller brings to the table. I've talked about it at length over the past few months, and so I was really looking forward to seeing him play. And the first half was absolutely a disaster. I started getting text messages from like the naysayers. And one of the things about Summer League is that if you really like a prospect and he plays well, you're kind of like pumping your chest or pounding your chest. I told you so. I told you so. And if there's a prospect that people don't like and he doesn't get off to a good start, you start seeing all the naysayers and the critics, and I knew he wasn't good. And when Brandon Miller got off to that terrible first half, I started seeing like the breakdowns on social media. Oh, this is why I have doubts about this. They showed like literally every miss. And, social media is brutal. It is cruel. I started getting messages. Somebody actually sent me a message talking about, like the video of Homer Simpson like disappearing in the grass. They sent that to me, talking about when Brandon Miller is not playing well, I disappear. But it was the first half, and I get it. In the first half, he was bad. 5 points, 3 rebounds, 1 block, and 6 fouls. So if you don't know, in Summer League, you get up to 10 fouls, and he had 6, so he would have fouled out in the first half. But in the second half, he looked better. He ended up finishing with 18 points. He scored 12 points in the fourth quarter, shot 5 of 11 from the floor, finished with 5 rebounds, 3 assists, a steal and a block. And I will put context to it. The 12 points he scored in the fourth quarter, the game was decided. It was over. Charlotte was getting blown out from the start. It was like 32-11 at the end of the first half. And what's crazy is Charlotte had 4 starters that were first-round picks: Nick Smith, James Bouknight, Brandon Miller, and Kai Jones. San Antonio had 2 players that were on 2-way contracts last year, and Dominic Barlowe, no relation to me, and Julian Champagnie. They outscored Charlotte, those 2 alone, those 2 guys on 2-way contracts, outscored Charlotte's 4 first-rounders by themselves in the first quarter. So anyway, said all that to say this. Brandon Miller, on paper, he had a solid performance, but if you look at the game, he showed the flashes in the second half, mostly in the fourth quarter. The game, it had really no impact on the game. Charlotte was getting smacked around. But if you're a Charlotte fan, then I think you have every reason to be encouraged. Number one, because I wouldn't be shocked at all to see the players that were selected really high struggle in the opening game or 2 in Summer League, because these guys haven't played 5-on-5 since the season ended. And more than likely, they worked out hard, but they didn't have the same competitive workout schedule as a guy that was selected in the mid-first round that had to go to 10, 15 workouts. So Wembanyama, even though he played a few weeks ago, I think he'll be okay. Brandin hadn't played since March or April, and then he had mono and then missed, significant amount of his pre-draft training process. With mono, lost 13 pounds. Scoot actually played his last game in March. So if he gets off to a slow start, that is not indicative of him, of his career or anything like that. And then the Thompson twins hadn't played in a while either. So I expect those guys to kind of struggle a little bit early. And if they get off to a good start, it's definitely possible. But I do think that conditioning is going to be somewhat of an issue. But like I said, overall, I think Charlotte should feel encouraged with Brandon Miller's game, even though he didn't play good. All right, I want to talk about his teammate, Nick Smith Jr. Now, although on paper, Nick was 5 of 14, didn't have great numbers, he scored 12 points, and I was actually encouraged from what I saw out of Nick. He had the same hop in his step and the bounce and the swagger and the confidence that he had prior to his freshman year at Arkansas, and maybe even like in the early stages of his freshman year. At one point in the season, Nick Smith was not confident at all, especially in the NCAA tournament. He was not confident in his game. You saw him just kind of standing in a corner. He didn't have that same, the best way I can describe it is bounce in his step. It's like he's got this energy that he plays with, and that was missing at the end of the year. And I felt like he had that in Monday night's game. He looks stronger. He looks like he's put on some weight. And I thought he played well. The numbers weren't there at all. He had more turnovers than assists, and he was negative 17 in his minutes on the floor. But the main thing for me was seeing the confidence. And I like the fact that Charlotte played him as their primary ball handler. And right now he's kind of more so of a combo guard. And that was one of the concerns about him going into his freshman year was, is he a 1 or is he a 2? And didn't really get the opportunity to play a lot of 1, split backcourt duties with Anthony Black, who was the 6th pick in the draft. So I think for Charlotte, it's a wise decision to put the ball in his hands, let him be the primary ball handler, and just see what you got. See if he is capable of initiating the offense. See if he's more of a 2 than a 1. So I was definitely encouraged. But again, on paper, not great. 5 of 14 from the floor, 12 points. 3 assists and 4 turnovers, but I thought he was aggressive getting downhill, and I thought he showed that he can get to a spot. So, like I said, I thought Charlotte should be pleased with Nick Smith's performance. All right, when we return, I want to talk about Jaime Jaquez, who had the best opening night or opening summer league performance out of all the players that played in the 2023 NBA draft class. But let's talk about FanDuel. And you can take your first swing at betting Major League Baseball on FanDuel, and you can get 10 times your first bet amount in bonus bets up to $200. That's right. Just bet $20 and you can land $200 in bonus bets, win or lose. That is $200 you can spend betting everything from the money line to the over and under to who you think is going to hit the first home run. It's all on the app that is safe and is secure and super easy to use. Plus, when you win, you get paid instantly. There's no better place to bet on Major League Baseball than FanDuel, which is America's #1 sports book. So sign up today. Visit FanDuel.com/LockedOn to get up to $200 in bonus bets. That's FanDuel.com/LockedOn. FanDuel, the official partner of Major League Baseball and Locked On. Thank you for making Locked On NBA Big Boy your first, second, third, fourth, fifth. I don't care. Long as you're listening. Thank you for listening to the Locked On NBA Big Boy podcast. And in the next episode, it will be a recap of day 2 of their Summer League games in Sacramento and Salt Lake City. All right, let's get to Jaime Jaquez. Jaime Jaquez was impressive. That's the best way to describe it. He was impressive. He scored 22 points in only 22 minutes. He actually had 14 points at halftime, while Brandon Miller Nick Smith and a couple players like Keyonte George and Brandin Podziemski that I'm going to name later got off to really slow starts in Summer League. And you can make a case and say, I don't want to say it's lack of inexperience or whatever, but Jaime Jaquez is battle-tested. He's played in big games throughout his career at UCLA. This is a guy that is one of the all-time leading scorers in UCLA history. Now, when you go down the long list of players that have come out of that program, it is definitely impressive to be on that list, even though the game has definitely changed since UCLA dominated. Guys aren't really staying a long time, and in college basketball, if you stay long enough, or if you're in one of the school's all-time leading scorers, then that means you were there a long time. But anyway, Jaquez played great. I was skeptical. I never doubted Jaime Jaquez's ability to score in the mid post and the low post, and his toughness and craftiness and footwork. But I will say, I was not a big believer in how his game would translate to the NBA. I didn't think that teams would give him ISO mid post touches, and I thought his game would have to totally change. And I still have a little bit of concern there, but he did a good job, where he's went a long way and proved me wrong. I heard that his pre-draft workout process was absolutely phenomenal. I heard he was dominating. I heard some dudes was running from him. I heard he was giving guys the work. He was giving guys the business. And he's such a crafty guy. I can really see him, or see how he would stand out in that setting. And then in the Summer League setting, again, it's just one game. In Summer League, we have a tendency to overreact. But he was impressive. Again, he scored early and often. He was efficient, and he had a couple dunks. Like, he had a highlight dunk over Colin Castleton. Colin Castleton's a big dude. He's like 6'11". Dunked all over him, and he just showed like the versatility in his game. Didn't necessarily get his mid-post touches, and he didn't score like the way he scored in college, but he just showed a different level of versatility. He scored on 3 levels, whether it was cutting to the basket, slashing to the rim, getting to his pull-up, scored off of dribble handoffs, played out of ball screens, and he made 3 3-pointers. And that was kind of like one of the biggest concerns, is that if he's not going to get a bunch of mid-post touches and ISOs, can he knock down open shots? And he made 3 out of 7 threes. So if I were giving out grades in this episode, I would give Jaime Jaquez an A for his performance, because 22 points in 22 minutes, he was definitely impressive. All right, the next player that I want to talk about is Jalen Hood-Schifino. Hood-Schifino played in the game Miami Heat versus the Lakers. He was the 17th pick, and he scored 15 points in a blowout loss. His team lost 107-90 to the Heat, and he really struggled with his shooting. He was 6 out of 19 and just had a bunch of shots that I felt like went in and out. But I would not give him like a bad grade. I just thought he had an off shooting night. I was impressed with the size, the handle. I thought he made some good reads. I think he's going to be fine. May not be this year, because he really struggles off the catch. And I think in order to like succeed in LA playing with LeBron, you got to be able to knock down open shots. That's not his game right now, but he is going to be really good as a guy that just punishes drop coverage, that gets to his spots. I mean, he's big and strong, and like I said, good handle, good vision, whether it's like making plays for others out of pick and roll, or even just making the extra pass. So although he was 6 of 19, it wasn't all doom and gloom performance for Jalen Hood-Schifino. All right, I want to talk about Keyonte George. I thought Keyonte had a good game, showed some promise. The first thing I noticed about Keyonte, and I've seen him a few times throughout the summer. I saw him in Chicago. I saw him in New York. But seeing him and I wasn't at the game live. I watched it from home. But seeing him on TV and just seeing how different his body looks is the first thing that stood out to me. He looks like high school Louisville, Texas, that is his hometown. He looked like high school Keyonte George. The quickness was there, the pop around the rim, the burst, all of that was there. And it was lacking in college. It was lacking to the point where there were a lot of people that questioned his athleticism. He's not a good athlete. And I've kind of defended his athleticism all year long. Showed guys video clips of him in high school, jumping over people, dunking. But then people would argue with me that's not functional. Well, the reason why Keyonte did not look like the Keyonte George in high school is because he put on like 20 to 25 pounds. I had mentioned it before. I even wrote about it on NBA Big Board. I had a scout reach out to me, and he was just raving about Keyonte's body and just how much he's improved his conditioning and just how different he looks compared to his freshman season. And he was just talking about that. He thinks he's down to about 8% body fat. And, so I think it has helped Keyonte as far as like with the burst and the quickness and so on. So I thought he played well. Again, he had 18 points, 5 rebounds, and 4 assists. They played him on the ball. They played him off the ball. He made some impressive reads. He had a few defensive plays, like he had a couple steals in transition. So I'm really looking forward to seeing what Keyonte does once Taylor Hendricks and Bryce Sensabaugh, 2 other players that the Jazz drafted in the first round. Curious to see how that lineup looks when you have those 3 rookies on the floor. Another player that I want to talk about is Brandin Podziemski. I thought Brandin played well, 12 points, 6 rebounds, 6 assists. Was a little hesitant and passive at first, but got it going in the fourth quarter. I think he had like 8 of his 12 points in the fourth quarter. But he showed he can pass. He showed that he has the ability to run an offense, make the right reads. I think he's going to be good out of pick and rolls. It's in an interesting situation with Golden State, considering that they have Chris Paul and Steph Curry, then they signed Corey Joseph. So I'm really curious to see like what his role is as a rookie. But the best thing that he can do right now is just go out there, perform, and play like he normally plays, which is being like a high IQ playmaker, and he's just a really good rebounder. I know he averaged about 8 rebounds per game this year, but the way he tracks basketballs down, his nose for the ball, he's just a great rebounder. And he had 6 rebounds in his first game. So I think Brandin Podziemski is a triple-double threat in the Summer League. And then I want to talk about Sidy Sissoko. Sidy is someone that I was shocked that he fell to the second round. He is a big wing playmaker, and the shooting is still a work in progress. He wasn't really like aggressive in looking for his offense. He only scored 3 points. He only had 4 rebounds. But I think he's going to make a name for himself early in his career as a defender. I mean, he was giving Brandon Miller fits early in the game. I know, like I had mentioned, part of Brandon's early struggles may have been jitters, the conditioning wasn't there, and a good chunk of that was just Sidy Sissoko playing good defense. And so I think Sissoko is someone that if he can put it together on the offensive end, because he has the skills. But right now I think his defense is a little bit ahead of his offense. But he made a couple no-look passes. The vision is there. I think San Antonio, especially with their track record of developing, San Antonio got one in City. All right, when we return, I want to talk about 2 of my favorite players that I've been raving about all season. And they fell a lot lower than what I would have taken them, but I thought that they showed flashes and they showed why I'm high on them in their Summer League debut. Stay tuned. All right, last segment. In this segment, I want to talk about a couple players that I really like, and then I want to preview the games for tonight, which start in a couple hours, or maybe when you're listening to this, they've already started. But I wanted to talk about Terquavion Smith and Gigi Jackson. 2 guys that I'm high on. Somebody actually criticized me because I said I was high on Elmarko Jackson, and they commented like, well, if he's high on Elmarko Jackson, in so many words, that means he's going to be like Gigi Jackson and Terquavion Smith. I get it. I think that Gigi would have went first round. I mean, I've talked about it. There are some concerns there about his maturity and his age. There's never been a question about his talent. And then Turk, I honestly think that Turk made a mistake by coming back. His draft stock was high last year. I still think he's going to outplay guys that were selected ahead of him. He's going to look better than guys that, were first round picks. So to me, where you get drafted, it is important, but I always try to look at it like 5 years after the draft. Where is this guy going to be? Because sometimes a guy can get drafted high because he's the flavor of the month. And for example, the flavor of the month last year at this time was a guy like Terquavion Smith, and that was based off of the success of like Jordan Poole and Bones Highland. And Jordan Poole, you know, just, I don't know if he would have gotten the same amount of money that he got last summer if he were available this summer. And of course, you know, Golden State winning a championship helped him. I think that his style of play is kind of like seen as a negative in a sense, at least right now at this very moment. And I think you can say the same thing about Bones Highland. The situation with Bones in Denver, and then he goes to the Clippers, and Denver goes on to win a championship. And I don't know all the details there, but I know that I think if Bones were a free agent last summer and a free agent this summer, he would have got a bigger deal last summer. So, and I think because they're similar in a sense, and because he's been compared to them, I think that really impacted Terquavion. And it doesn't help that he's like 165 pounds, but I'm a huge believer in his upside as a microwave scorer. I think he's a better passer than he gets credit for. Made some nice reads. I know there's a particular pick and roll play with Jaden Springer as the finisher. And even though he only shot 6 of 16, he showed that he can be a dangerous scoring weapon. Finished with 18 points, was 4 of 10 from 3. And he is someone who just exudes confidence. And I think that he's going to absolutely be fine. And he is going to, you can mark my word, he is going to outplay and have better numbers and a better career than a large chunk of the guys that are drafted ahead of him. A large chunk of the guys that are drafted ahead of him. And then there was Gigi Jackson. And Gigi, his first 4 minutes, he looked every bit of the raw. Well, he's not necessarily considered raw. He's always considered really talented. But he looked every bit of 18 years old, the youngest player in the draft, someone that, you know, is just a ways away from being able to contribute and play. He was slow on the defensive end. He had a couple bad turnovers. He shot the ball when he got in the game and, you know, forced some shots, I should say. But then in the second half, he showed the flashes of why I'm so high on him, why I think if he puts it all together, he has one of the highest upsides in this draft class. Again, he's 6'9", can handle the ball. There's one play where he showed the ball handling, got the ball on the left wing, hit the guy with a couple crossovers, got to the rim, cuffed it. The shot ended up being goaltended, but that counted as a basket. Then he had a play where he did a Euro step finish. There's another play where he had a mismatch on him. I think it was against DJ Stewart. He backed him down, took him to the post, made a soft touch finish around the rim. Then there was a play where he got an offensive rebound and pulled up from a 3 at the top of the key. So he ended up with 10 points on, I believe, like 4 of 8 shooting. Also had a couple blocks. And so I thought that Gigi looks good in his 17 minutes. Now, there is a uphill battle for playing time simply because you got Jake LaRavia, you got David Roddy. I imagine they still like Zaire Williams. And so he's going to have his work cut out for him. But I think that he can develop and be one of the best players in this class. I imagine he's going to spend some time with the Memphis Hustle. And one thing about the NBA, you're going to get an opportunity. Someone's going to get hurt. You're going to get a chance. But you have to be ready when you get that chance. And so I think that Gigi, like I said, he's going to spend a lot of time with the Memphis Hustle. I think he's going to do well there. And he is going to outplay where he was selected at 45. All right, lastly, I know the game's starting a few. I want to preview the games for tonight. The first game is the Warriors versus the Hornets. Looking to see if the Hornets look better. I mean, it's not saying much. They can't help but look better. I mean, they were absolutely awful against the Spurs. I mean, it was 32-11. They were down like 52-25 or something like that at halftime. Want to see how Nick Smith plays as a primary ball handler. Want to see if Brandon Miller can capitalize off the strong fourth quarter he had. Also want to see if Podziemski is a little bit more aggressive. And then the second game is the Grizzlies and the Thunder. And that's that. I mean, it's the second game going on at the same time. Definitely looking forward to seeing Chet Holmgren versus Gigi Jackson and Chet Holmgren versus Kenny Lofton. That's probably the game that you really want to see because I felt like Kenny, you know, kind of made a name for himself last year at the Summer League. But, I mean, he really made a name for himself with Team USA when he helped us win the gold medal at the under-19s a couple years ago. But Chet and Kenny is probably is the matchup that everybody's looking forward to seeing. Then there's the Spurs and the Lakers. The Spurs, 2 second-year guys that were on 2-way contracts last year. Don Barlowe and Julian Champagnie. I mean, they look like, I know it was the Hornets, but they were very, very impressive and dominant in the opening game against Charlotte. Definitely want to see if Jalen Hood-Schifino can bounce back. I thought Max Lewis gave the Lakers some good minutes when he played. So I want to see if he gets a greater opportunity to showcase what he can do. I thought Colin Castleton was good in his minutes in the first game. And then the Lakers got smacked. So hopefully they can bounce back. And then there's 76ers and Jazz. And whenever Terquavion has the ball, it's exciting for me because I don't know if he's going to pull up from super deep like he did where he had a shot against the Jazz. He had a shot where he attempted like right inside the note for the Jazz logo. And he actually, did he make it? I don't know if he made it or missed it. I think he made it. And then, Keyonte. So you got 2 guards that I think are, to me, they're exciting to watch because they're both good pull-up shooters. They both attack drop coverages, and they are better playmakers than I think they get a lot of credit for. And then the last game is the Miami Heat versus the Sacramento Kings. Don't know if Keegan Murray's going to play. He looked just too good for Summer League in his last game, but Keegan Murray and Jaime Jaquez, I think that'll be a good game. Nikola Jovic had a really impressive game. I think he's ready to turn the corner. So it's only day 2 of Summer League, but I'm looking forward to it. And then after that, we got one more day of Las Vegas. We got one more day of Salt Lake City and Sacramento before we are off to the big Summer League in Las Vegas. I will be there Friday. If you are going to be in Vegas at Summer League and you're listening, shoot me a message on Twitter and we can find a way to connect. Once again, this is Rafael Barlowe, and I am